Hi, YouTube. This is Eden here. Um, I just decided impromptu to go live and share something that I've been thinking about for a little while. A few months ago, someone had contacted me because his wife had an allergy to coconut oil and shea butter. I'm guessing she probably has a severe nut allergy. And he was saying that she was because all the natural hair recipes that she was finding and all the products had either one of the two or both. So I know there are a lot of people who are allergic to tree nuts, and I just wanted to make a video that helps those people out in terms of knowing what they can source and safely include in their products that won't trigger their topical allergy, whether it's eczema or so forth, or if it's more severe and they actually go into anaphylactic shock and stuff and have an EpiPen if they go near nuts. So let's do that. I need to figure out, the YouTube thing is a little different now. I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen. And nope, that's not happening there. For some reason, I can't share my screen. I really wanted to be able to do that. Gosh darn it. So that's YouTube. I don't see how to share my screen, which is kind of odd. I had a whole little presentation for you guys too. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just be reading my presentation because I can't figure out how to share my screen here. So the first thing when you're formulating for people with nut and seed allergies is, why should you care? Why should you care about doing this? Well, the percentage of people with peanut allergies in the United States is 0.6%. Or at least that was the case in 1997. Doesn't sound like very much. Well, in 2008, which was about, 11 years later, the number of people had tripled to 1.4% of nut allergy. And so 1.4% of about 300 million plus people is quite a fair number of people. We're dealing with at least 3 million people here. So that's quite a sizable population. And those are just the people that are reporting. Okay. And that was in 2008. In 2008, it had tripled. Now we're in 2018. So 10 years later, who's to say that triple effect hasn't doubled, right? So there are a lot of people in the world with peanut allergies, and increasingly so. It seems like we're becoming more intolerant, or maybe we're just more aware of it now. So symptoms that used to be dismissed as she just has bad skin, or he's just always sick, people are discovering are actually allergies to things. But either way, people are far more aware of it now. And allergy, if you ingest something with nuts, it can send you to the hospital. And if you don't get to the hospital in time, or if you don't get your EpiPen in time, or the ambulance doesn't come in time, it could kill you. So I understand why people with nut allergies are so paranoid. They need to be, for their safety. So granted, this is mostly for ingested foods. So people eating in restaurants, maybe they share, knives between station, or they use the same cutting board that they cut nuts up on to create your nut-free supposedly meal. There's a trace bit of peanut oil in a pot that wasn't washed out properly, and then something else gets cooked in there, and then you start to feel an itching in the back of your throat. I have a relative who carries an EpiPen, which is why I know these details, and it's really, really scary to be in that situation. Sometimes for people who have the topical allergies, it comes out in the form of and rashes, just kind of weird mystery rashes, or like an eczema situation that will go away. So these are all things that people with nut allergies suffer with. So even if you don't want to cater to this niche specifically, if you're in this niche, this is a good thing for you to create, because why would you want to create things with stuff that you can't really touch without having a reaction? And, you get to serve your own community, the messaging, the needs, the what keeps them up at things intimately. So it would be excellent to just expand into that niche. If you're a person who's not catering to this niche, but you're thinking of creating a second line or a group of products that specifically cater to this group of people, you need to actually buy a second set of equipment, because just like the cooking in the restaurant, cross-contamination can happen easily, so you just want to be careful. Even though you're washing things and sterilizing things and all of the things, it's always possible to miss a spot, which for, you or I, if you're not a person who's allergic to nuts and seeds, they're weak. So, you got to be really careful about that. But even if you're not going to cater to this group, people will ask you questions, because people are, not everyone is super knowledgeable. Maybe someone just started with this allergy like a few months ago. So they're still doing research. They're still trying to understand their own situation, right? So you being knowledgeable about what's in your product, what's not in your product, being able to put a disclaimer, hey, if you're allergic to tree nuts, don't use my products because they contain blah, 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 which sometimes can trigger, allergic reactions in people who have sensitivities to tree nuts and seeds and legumes and whatnot. Okay. So what to watch out for? So obviously any kind of tree nut or ground nut, so peanuts, walnuts, pistachios, almonds, all of the things that are more obvious, right? Legumes, so things like pea proteins, soybeans, so these things aren't going to be as obvious, but they also sometimes can trigger. Now, some people are only allergic to nuts, coconut is actually another one, that comes in that tree nut category, right? So some people are only allergic to nuts. They can do seeds and they can do, legumes and so forth. But some people kind of have weird sort of sensitivities to the entire group of everything, or, might be able to do no tree nuts, but can do only 2 different seed oils, but then the rest of the seed oils they're allergic to, or are allergic to only 2. And, so just kind of, I think that if you have a sensitivity, just avoid all the things, just to be on the safe side. Some things are labeled beans, like castor beans. Castor beans are actually the seeds of the castor plant. I think it's a shrub. I don't think it's a tree, but it's actually the seeds of that plant. Coffee beans, like coffee bean oil, coffee oil, that's a thing now, right? Well, coffee beans are actually seeds of a coffee bush, right? So we wouldn't think about it. We think, oh, these are actually beans. No, they're not beans, they're seeds. And beans obviously are in that legume family. All of those are things to be wary of. Butters. I'm sorry, but if you have this kind of sensitivity, most butters are going to be out for you, because almost every single butter that I research is pressed from the kernel of a tree fruit, so basically we're going back to the nut area. So whether it's cacao, cocoa butter, it's pressed from the seeds of the cocoa tree, right? And so they press the seeds, and then they separate the fat, and the fat becomes cocoa butter, and then the rest becomes, cacao powder, and they roast it and it becomes cocoa powder, right? So all the different butters for the most part are made with that. And then there's some butters that are a mixture of a hydrogenated coconut oil with, some kind of cold pressed oil, and so they'll call it argan butter, but there really is no argan butter. It's just argan oil, which is a nut oil with hydrogenated coconut oil, just like how they make margarine or vegetable shortening. They take vegetable oils and then it's all just nuts. So no, you can't do butters. I'm so sorry. Botanicals. Okay. So there are plenty of botanicals that you can use. But the parts of the plant that you're going to want to use are leaves, the flesh of fruits and juices, shoots, roots, and flowers, right? So obviously just skip the seeds and, the kernels and this and that. But those parts of the plant you can use usually in aqueous form or infused into an oil. Proteins, okay? So I don't really deal with animal proteins that much. If I can avoid them, I do. Occasionally, I will try something that has an animal protein because I have a client who wants to replicate a product that they like. And so just to get an idea of what the texture is and what the feel of this is on the skin or the hair, I might buy something with silk protein in it, with some kind of protein in it, like an egg or a milk. Keratin, I just avoid. I'm just like, oh, I'm not going to do that. But basically, I just deal with plant proteins because, I mostly ingest plants in my own life, diet-wise. So hydrolyzed proteins, hydrolyzed plant proteins, for the most part, are coming from seeds, so whether it's lupine, baobab, all these different kinds of hydrolyzed proteins, for the most part, are coming from seeds, especially the newer, fancier ones. The exceptions are going to be grains, okay? So what is safe to use? Wheat is safe to use, but of course, wheat is not gluten-free. So that's a whole other category of video, right? Is how to make gluten-free products. But wheat protein at least is safe for people who have nut and seed allergies. Unless, of course, they are, have celiac disease or something, then it's not safe for them. Quinoa protein, rice protein, and oat protein. All of those are going to be safe for people with this kind of allergy. So which oils are actually nut-free and seed-free? Let's look at that. And this is where I become very sad that I can't share my screen with you because I made such a beautiful presentation. I might have to go on Facebook because I have to share it somewhere after putting this much work into the presentation. But this is where I try to break the monotony of the presentation with pictures. So avocado, and there's a beautiful picture of an avocado there. Oh, wow. But an avocado, ordinarily most oils are pressed from the seed of a fruit or from a nut or something like that, right? But avocado oil is actually pressed from the part of the avocado that we eat, not the kernel that we usually throw in the trash, right? When we're making our own avocado dishes at home, because the flesh of the fruit is so fatty, right? So they can just press the oil out of that. And so that's wonderful for people with nut and seed allergies. And avocado works really well on skin and hair, sort of medium viscosity. Sometimes when it's super refined, it can even go towards the light side, but it's just a wonderful oil to use. Buriti. Now, this is a really beautiful fruit to look at. It's kind of like a reddish orange, like a brick red almost. And then when you peel the skin of the fruit, it's like a bright orange. And the oil is also bright orange. And it is so beautiful of an oil. It's great for hair. It's great for skin. The only issue with buriti oil is that that orange tint does kind of stay a little bit. I remember when I worked in a center And I was working with a lot of very sort of light-skinned, fair-skinned people, a lot of Caucasian people, and there was this oil that was the rage. That was a facial oil, like a facial oil blend, and the main oil in that was buriti. And every time they would put it on their skin would have like a little glow, like an orange glow, almost like a tanning thing, which wasn't bad, but it made me think, dang, this oil is super orange, you know? So I kind of wonder about having it as a finishing oil in, even though it would make an amazing finishing oil in hair products, like I wonder if it would stain a pillowcase or something like that, you know, the way turmeric does. So I like it in rinse out products more than I like it in finishing products for that reason, even though the texture of it is perfect for finishing oils. But I think that if it was in a blend and in a small amount, it would be fine. Yeah, and it's just a lovely oil that comes out of the rainforest. I think for the most part, the Brazilian Amazon rainforest, but it might be in other areas of the Amazon rainforest. Maybe there's some in Ecuador or other places, Peru, I don't know. But it really is a lovely oil for that. And it also has a very fatty flesh. So the oil is pressed from the flesh and not the seeds of the buriti fruit. Okay, Laurel Berry. So laurel is basically bay laurel, like the bay leaves that you use for cooking, right? So in while you may or may not know that the leaves are very therapeutic for scalp conditions, like making a tea out of that and rinsing. It's great for dandruff. It's good for hair growth. The essential oil of bay leaves is also great for all of those things. What's new to me is the berry. I didn't know that the berry was used or available or useful or whatever. But there is a phenomenon called Aleppo Soap. And basically, Aleppo Soap tends to be 30 or 40% of the oil of this berry, kind of mixed with olive oil. So it's kind of like, instead of being a Castile soap, which would be 100% olive oil, it's like a Bastille soap, which is predominantly Castile, but with other oils added to it. And so this oil apparently is really healing for scalp conditions, for skin conditions, for dandruff, for, you know, eczema, psoriasis, all of the things. So laurel berry is kind of really thick and viscous. I would say like maybe not as thick as castor oil, but you know, not as light as olive oil. Not that olive oil is light. I think that's kind of more, but you know, it's kind of in between that texture. So it's a thicker oil. So I would say that it would be something that you would use in something that was more medicinal and healing. And you would put a small percentage of it in anything that was a finishing oil, in a treatment oil or some kind of rinse off application or conditioner, that sort of thing. You could go a little heavier. But laurel berry, what they do is they take the berries, they boil them, and then in the process of boiling them, the fruit separates from the seeds, and then the oil in the fruit, not in the seeds, rises to the top of the pot, and they're able to skim off the oil from the top of the pot, because we know oil and water don't mix, and if you put oil on top of water, it just kind of sits on top of the water. Now, this is the thing with that. Because of the process by which it's extracted or separated, because it's not just pressed from the flesh, I wonder if in the process of boiling, some of the proteins from the seed somehow get infused into the oil, and if that might trigger an allergic reaction, because I'm not really sure whether the parts that people are allergic to in seeds are on the outer coat of the seed, or whether you have to press the seed open and, you know, for the proteins inside the seed to be released. I don't know what the story is with that, but I think it's worth experimenting with, maybe on a little patch of skin over a few weeks, just to see how you respond to that. or how the person, your loved one who you're making products for, responds to that before you go full throttle on the Laurel Berry. But it's an older, oil in terms of its use. And Aleppo Soap is named that way because they believe that the recipe for that soap, Syria, which unfortunately is, in serious distress right now. But that's where it gets its name. So it's an old oil, but in terms of coming to makers and soapers and handcrafters, it's relatively new. And I'm looking at my presentation right now. So if you're asking questions, I'll see them at the end when I get through these oils. And, unfortunately for people with nut and seed allergies, there aren't that many oils they can use. I used to think it was just 3, but so I was kind of thrilled to discover that there's at least 10 relatively common oils, at least common in the United States, Canada, probably Australia, that people can get that would work for this degree, maybe even South Africa too, that I just wanted to do this presentation super quick to help people who, have that struggle. So oat. Okay, so oat is a grain, as you know, and the kernels of the grain, they're able to press an oil out of them, and it's a really thick, viscous oil. Oat is known, it's included in a lot of bath solutions for being soothing to irritated skin, kind of soothing for eczema. It's gentle enough for babies, all of the things. In terms of applying it topically, I can see how it would work in a cream or a conditioner or a shampoo. On its own, it is a bit thick and viscous, so it would need to be in a blend with a lighter oil, just depending on what purpose was. But I think it's definitely, and it works really well in rinse-off treatment oils. And for finishing oil, I would probably keep it to probably about 10%, 15%, and then mix it with other oils that are kind of lighter. So that's oat oil, but it's very soothing. And oftentimes when people have those sort of nut allergies and seed allergies, they may have skin reactions because of it. So being able to use an oat oil, or like we mentioned before, Laurel Berry oil, something that's really very healing, could be very useful to them. So olive and olive squalane. So olive squalane is basically a super refined olive oil, and it takes the really sort of light aspects of olive oil. So olive squalane, ordinarily, like olive oil, would be great for a facial wash oil, but not for necessarily a leave-on oil, whereas olive squalane would be really great for an oil serum for the face, really nice, in a beard oil. It's super, super light, absorbs really fast and quickly for people who don't want anything greasy, and it's a little bit more pricey, so anything high-end, it goes really well. And then olive oil, can be used in so many different applications, from soaping to, natural hair products to infusions, all of the things. And it's not pricey, at least olive oil isn't. Olive squalane is, but olive oil is not. And it too has a very fatty fruit. Even though we don't think of it as fruit, but it is a fruit, just a non-sweet one. And its flesh is fatty, so they can press the flesh, and that's where the oil comes from. It doesn't come from the pit. The pit, I think, for the most part, just gets thrown away. And we use the leaf medicinally and tinctures, olive leaf tincture, and things that are sort of needed to be antibacterial and such. And then the fruit we eat, or we use the oil for culinary purposes all over the world. And it also has those beautifying effects. Rice bran. So this is the, so you have the hull of the rice, which is the outer bit that you see, in, say, a brown rice grain. And then the next layer under that is the bran. Okay. So that's the, when you see brown rice, that outer bit of brown that you see, that is the actual bran. So in white rice, that bran is removed, and so you just see the white. I don't know if it's called, is it called endogerm or whatever it's called? I don't know. My high school science is failing me right now. But yeah, so the brown part of brown rice, that's what rice bran oil is taken from. It has a lot of different uses. For those of you doing infusions, it's a great oil for infusing in. It's really inexpensive. It's kind of a light oil. It's not super light, but it's fairly light. Like, it makes a good finishing oil. It works in hair and skin products. Very versatile, very easy to source. So rice bran is good for nut and seed allergies. Sea buckthorn, that's one of those oils. And this is another one that is really, really pretty, orange, bright orange little fruits. And I wish you could see them style on Facebook when I do it at some point this week or next week. I don't know when. But if you like the page and follow, you'll be able to see the presentation. But in any case, sea buckthorn is super, super rich. It's one of those things that you always see, from all these suppliers advertised as used between 5 and 15%. I mean, so usually low percentages, just because it's really thick and viscous. It also does have a very strong aroma. So, it's anything that can't be covered easily with an essential oil or a fragrance, hopefully a natural fragrance, people. There are actual natural fragrance extracts, but that's a whole other presentation. Maybe I'll come and do a live on that some other time, especially after I figured out the presentation style right here on the new YouTube live configuration. They've kind of switched things around. Like, I've no oil brand, or even as a fraction of your lotion. Like, I wouldn't use a lotion that had 100% sea buckthorn. I'd mix it with something milder and lighter, like an avocado or a rice bran or something like that. Okay. And I wouldn't mix sea buckthorn with buriti because they're both so super reddish orange. It would just be a lot. You definitely end up with some kind of a yellow orange cream, which is fine. I don't mind colored creams because I understand that, botanicals have colors. That's just what's up. However, I kind of wonder about the staining effect. I haven't experimented with it enough, but I know from dealing with things like carrot, like macerated carrot oil, or from turmeric oil infusions, how that stuff can be staining. So I'm kind of like, just, use with caution. And then finally, I think that's the last one. Let me see. Yeah, it is the last one, wheat germ. So basically, we all know what like a stalk of wheat looks like, or at least the tiny little grain that you take off. When you take the husk off, what you're left with is the wheat germ. So they press that and they get a nice rich oil out of that. And that too is also really thick and viscous. And it's something that you're going to use in smaller quantities. But it is pretty rich, full of vitamin E. It's healing. And, when you only have about 10 oils to work with, you just celebrate each one you can get. And I'm sure that this list will grow over time as more and more resources become available to us. Like, there's so many oils online now, that we never would have had access to 25 years ago. But we have access to them now because, the world is becoming smaller, especially with the internet. So, just keep hope alive. The selection will increase. But this is better than the 3 that I used to know about before, is to have all these 10. And so if you want to do your own research, let me exit out of this and go back to my YouTube live. So if you wanted to do, so Elizabeth Jean-Louis, hi, Eden, what time is it by you? Because it's 1 a.m. here. Here it is 10:12 p.m. I know it's super late, but my kids are home for the summer. I don't really have a lot of time during the day. So I wake up super early, like 4 a.m. on some days. And I work until they wake up. And then I'm with them during the day. And then when they go to bed, I do some work some more until I just, usually right now is my bedtime. But for some reason, I'm wired and I really wanted to do this presentation for you guys. So here I am. But in any case, if you were, let's just say you find an oil and you're not sure if it's nut free or seed free or whatever, or maybe you're looking at the ingredients in a formula you've already made and you're wondering, hey, is it possible to use this for, is it possible for someone to use this for their hair or skin if they have a nut allergy? Maybe someone's emailed you and asked you, hey, your product, can I use it? I have this issue. Or you're a person who is sensitive to and seeds and they trigger some kind of allergic reaction for you, and you're looking through products to see, and you see an oil or an ingredient or a botanical name that you don't recognize, just Google it and then say, is such and such oil, right? Or some kind of thing like that. Is it a nut? Is it safe for nut allergies? Or just Google the oil. And oftentimes a wiki thing will appear or a quick answer will appear. This is pressed from the seeds of such and such. This is pressed from the fruit. A place to look is New Directions Aromatics. They'll often share, like what the plant part is that the oil or whatever has come from. They'll share the part. So if you look in the description at all these different suppliers, From Nature with Love, and it doesn't matter if you're not in the United States, the information is the same, and these sites have great information. From Nature with Love is one, New Directions Aromatics is another, Mountain Rose Herbs is another. You can look at these sites and see what they say about the oil. And if they don't have any information about that oil, Google is your friend. It'll tell you what part the oil is extracted from, and then you can be safe. So Elizabeth has another question. So I was really looking for a cosmetic chemist. Can you please tell me what the best way to find a trusted one? I think that if you are looking for a cosmetic chemist, I don't know what country you're in. If you can tell me what country you're in, that will help. If you're in the United States, I do like Essential Wholesale. One of the reasons I like them is because they have great customer service. Right now I think they have probably like a 9-month wait time, but I don't think you're in USA. Perfect. Yeah, contact Essential Wholesale. They're a good place to work with. Another place you can contact is Formulator Sample Shop. They also can do for you. If you're looking to do something in the natural hair niche, there's a person who goes by the name of Sister Scientist. She's out of Chicago. So I think she does formulations and so forth. So if you contact any lab, if you go to Making Cosmetics and you tell them you're looking for a cosmetic chemist, they'll recommend a bunch of labs that they work with. So a lot of these places that supply ingredients will recommend, they'll have labs that they know of, or they might even be able to formulate for you. Sometimes Making Cosmetics will do formulas for people really inexpensively. So Formulate a Sample Shop, Essential Wholesale. Those two have the best customer service. And I'm telling you, customer service is the most important thing. I know you're thinking of resumes and qualifications and this and that, but anyone who goes out of their way to give that good of a customer service is going to work for you hard until you're happy, and they're going to communicate with you. And especially if, everything feels, overwhelming and foreign and complicated sounding and super sciencey, you're going to want someone who responds to emails in a reasonable amount of time, who actually returns your calls, who, isn't condescending, who, won't require a super upfront deposit before they even answer basic questions. Obviously at some point you're going to have to pony up and pay some money, but I like those two people two companies because they're nice and they're professional, and so there are other companies that you can use. And so if you go down that rabbit hole, it'll reveal a whole bunch of things. And another place you can look is a magazine called Happy Magazine, HAPPI magazine. And they have a whole directory of cosmetic scientists and stuff. But, I can't vet any of those because I've never worked with any of those. But yeah, I think take advantage of the small boutique-y thing. Know that at minimum, you're going to have a 12-week lead time into your products getting made, even after you finalize the formula. However, most places now, even Essential Wholesale that used to have a 12-week lead time, I guess, the industry is booming. They now have a 9-month lead time into the product getting, put on the factory floor and made. I'm sure they can kind of figure out the formula and stuff before that. So I'm glad you asked that question. I might actually do a live stream just on cosmetic chemists. I'll go down that rabbit hole and do something like that for you guys if you want. So Naturally Cynthia says, hey, Eden, what is the best way to begin making my natural hair products? Should I begin doing my research first? Yeah, definitely. I would begin with doing research. I believe that you need to find a niche. You need to decide who you want your target group to be. So you said natural hair. I would definitely add a specific texture, of hair. For me, I'm going to be relaunching my kids line this year. And so it's going to be specifically for 3C4A kids hair. Because why? That's what I struggled with and learned how to do and mastered. And those are the kids that I have in my house where I've catered to. Then when I've done that, I'll probably do something for short type 4C hair, because that's what I have. So people who don't want to do a whole bunch of lots of different things, maybe they just want to pick their afro out and go, then that can be my next thing. And then after that, but I would start with a specific category, or maybe people who have, scalp issues, that's an underserved market in the natural hair community. I just did this whole presentation on people with nut allergies. What if you did one for people who can't do shea butter and coconut oil, and you just did nut allergies? But I think niching down is really important. It makes you look more credible. You can really show up and serve, because that's how you sell. You just show up and you serve people and you help them and you teach them, and, and that kind of naturally sells products and builds confidence. So start by choosing a niche. And then once you've done that, research by, looking at YouTube videos, going to the forums and figuring out what people are saying, looking at product reviews on Amazon or whatever, and figuring out what people are saying, good and bad. That'll help you figure out a niche. And then after that, you can research ingredients that work for that niche, right? Then after you've done that, you can start looking at some free formulas. So go to makingcosmetics.com. They have a whole resource section of how to make conditioner, how to make shampoo, how to make any kind of thing, right? And just do a Google search for free formulary, right? A whole bunch of things will come up. Ingredients to Die For has a pretty good formulary as well, right? So just go through these free formularies and start getting an idea, at least, of proportions and how they're made. And then when you've done that, just throw your maybe buy some books or something, right? and then throw your hand in at trying to make it yourself. If you don't want to make it yourself, at least have a basic idea of proportions or ingredients for each product you want to make, and take that profile that you've created of your collection of ingredients that you want to a chemist. So at least you're cutting down on the chemist's hours, the formulation hours that you're paying for, because you're paying per hour for them to formulate it. And if you're taking it to someone who has no experience with natural hair and they're just trying to figure out some mystery that's only in your head, I mean, it's going to take way longer. But if you've done that research yourself, which is free, right? And actually puts your heart into the process, you're more involved, you've researched the topic, because you're going to have to market it. The chemist isn't going to market it for you. You still have to know about the product. And if you just kind of go here, that's my cell phone, hand it, you just kind of hand, your project over to a chemist and say, look, okay, look, I just want you to make this for me. And you get them to guess. It's going to take longer, and your heart is not going to be always 100% fully in it, because you're not going to really understand. You're just kind of waiting to see if it feels good in the hair, but you won't have ownership over it. So take ownership over it and research the daylights out of what it is you want to serve to people. And then when you approach your chemist, and whether it's for skin or hair or baby products or beard balms, more ownership, over that. So that's how I would approach it, whether you're making it yourself or whether you're taking it to a chemist. And so Elizabeth is saying, oh my goodness, I am so happy I was awake so late. So am I. Thank you. It was fun to not be speaking to myself. You just made my life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad it was helpful. Benedict, hi, you just joined. So I was talking about, I guess you'll have to catch the replay because I just did a presentation, except that I couldn't share my screen because YouTube just changed its configuration and I didn't figure out how to share my screen, but oh well. I go and do a share screen on Facebook. Not right now, I'm too tired, but another time I'll do a share screen on Facebook for, the same deal, which is people with nut allergies, people with seed allergies, and they're often interrelated, different oils that they can use that, that can replace the triggers. And also, if you don't serve that population, I don't serve that population necessarily. I don't use a lot of coconut oil because it doesn't work for me in the desert, but I use the heck out of shea butter, all those lovely oils coming out of Africa right now. Most of the oils that are seeds, I use those. So being able to say, hey, I'm really sorry, but this product doesn't necessarily work for you. And then all my equipment has those kind of things. So I don't feel really comfortable formulating for someone who's super, super sensitive. The only way I would do that is if it was a private label client and they wanted me to make some things, then, obviously they'd be ordering in quantities where I could justify the price of buying a whole new set of equipment just for them, but yeah, so there's that. Naturally, Cynthia said, thank you. You're most welcome. Do any of you have other questions? I know it's late, but I figured, hey, the world is a big place. Someone somewhere is awake. So find it. All right. So if you guys don't have any more questions, I am going to go ahead and log off. And Soremi from Nigeria, just waking up. Well, good morning. I know it's early there. So I'm going to log off now, but in a few minutes, YouTube will upload the replay of this as just a regular YouTube